Obviously,
I like
if you're
barbaric. I'm pro barbarian.
right. Well, that's the area you grew up in.
Yes.
But so now I'm picturing like a centerman with their stick broken. Now, obviously, you could have a winger take the draw, but
Yep.
maybe there's a time where it's still the centerman and just goes full on hit stick right off the faceoff, goes right through the opposing centerman. Completely
Well,
negates
I would
the
like
puck.
to see that. I think if you don't have a stick, you can't take the face off. Let's just add that in.
Well, hold on. Up until this rule suggestion, everyone had a stick to begin a face-off. So I think you've got to, once you open the Pandora's box, I think you've got to be open to this. Well, I like the idea of making icings more consequential. Like, you do see moments now where guys have been out long change, extended shifts, and an icing happens and you're like, oh boy, and the top guys come over the boards, and there's been moments where, critical parts of the game have all stemmed from that. But yeah, 5 times, because then you keep the running count and you're like, oh, they're at 4, right? It's like in the NBA, if a guy racks up fouls early, it's like, oh, already his 4th foul.
Yep.
We're early in the 3rd quarter. What does that mean? Suddenly now there's a heightened awareness around that.
Well, nobody ever fouls out in the NBA, so you never have to worry about that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Not anymore. Yeah, that's not too bad. I never would have thought of that, the broken stick.
Me neither. I thought it was really unique. I like the idea. I wanted to shout it out because I like the idea. It's creative.
Right. And where it's coming from.
Fan of the, and from a player, yes. I know you're a big fan of the jailbreak because you saw it in one of the, I think that's a great rule idea, but you saw it in one of the games of the PWHL this year. I love that idea. Yes.
Like being in the building when that happens is really cool because you've got the celebration of the goal, and then you see, if it's the home team that scores, the crowd gets to see their player released from the penalty box and come across and join the celebration. It's like double the joy.
And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what we're discussing, the jailbreak is if you score a shorthanded goal, you terminate the penalty against you. And I think that's a great rule. For a minor, major is something else, but for a minor, yes. Here we are, breaking down the news and solving all of hockey's problems in one podcast. 2-for-1 special for all of the listeners.
Yeah.
And the league.
You've seen the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. I raise you news and problem solving in one podcast. Especially, again, going back to the fact that it comes from, because it's one thing for us to sit here and be like, well, they could do this, we should change that rule. But for those that actually have to live it, that have to deal with these changes, or going, no, it's something we would like to see, that's really something.
Love it.
When is the next competition committee meeting?
That's a good question. I'll have to ask that.
May take a while for it to show up on the agenda there, but it's good to talk about. Really good to
I
talk
know
about.
I'll get a text. One way or the other. It'll either be...
Somehow it'll still be your fault.
You're stupid, or you and the players are stupid.
Yeah. You're stupid for not thinking it's stupid.
Stupid. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. We had talked just over a week ago, heading into the Combine in Buffalo, Elliott, that, the winds were circling in a way that it could be a very, very interesting week in terms of conversations and a lot of noise out of Buffalo. So we talked about the Sabres being active. The Rangers were another team. As the dust settles and everyone left the Combine there over the weekend, what other teams are you hearing that could be among the more active between now and leading right into free agency next month?
Well, first of all, in Buffalo, I had some Sabres fans who sent me notes and say, can you just explain what you're talking about with JJ Peterka? Do you think Buffalo won't trade him? And I said, that's not what I believe. What I believe is that Buffalo does not want to trade him. Now, who knows where this will go, but the Sabres have made it very clear that's not what they want to do. So I figured I would explain that a little bit more. As mentioned, the Rangers. Okay, I wanted to add a few more teams here. We've talked about how Utah is expected to be active this offseason. I heard that the Mammoth are discussing some stuff, and some stuff that might not necessarily be considered small. We'll see if it happens. We'll see if it's real, but they are definitely active. I think there's the pressure's on there. They want to have a big season, and so I think Utah's in the middle of a lot of things. It's interesting. There's a lot of talk about offer sheets, and after Holloway and Broberg last year, and people are talking about guys like Peterka, and the bigger names are always the sexier names. But I've had a few teams tell me that what more people are wondering about are kind of the Holloway and Broberg types. Like Joel Hofer is a name that gets mentioned a little bit out of St. Louis, and that makes sense. I understand that one. But I'll tell you another one that got mentioned to me, and also I think it's a pretty sharp idea. I don't know if it'll happen, but Utah has Jack McBain. And, McBain's a center, and he's a bigger guy. He's 25 years old. He's 6'4" center. Teams are always looking for those kinds of players. Big centers are hard to find. And I think the Mammoth really like him, and I think they're trying to sign him. But that's a name that a couple people were telling me when we were talking about offer sheets, who's an under the radar type that could get one. McBain was a name I heard quite a bit, actually. Low key, I heard another team, Seattle. I think Seattle is really eager to take a step this year. They have a lot of cap room. They have a lot of draft picks. They have a lot of flexibility. And, I don't know how Jason Botterill feels about offer sheets or Ron Francis feels about offer sheets, but it was pointed out to me that Seattle has a flexibility to go down that route if they wanted to. So that's another team people are watching. Montreal and forwards. I know there's a lot of talk about the Montreal D. I know Nick Hague's been linked to them, and I could see it absolutely. But I've heard a little bit about upgrading at forward too. So Montreal is another team that I've heard with that specifically. And I think some of that focus could be on, who do they envision playing with Demidov for a while? Is there somebody out there that they would look at and say, those are two people that could grow together a little bit? So that's kind of what I'm looking forward for Montreal. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Combine for the final thought, like some of the questions that were asked. But those were some of the teams I heard a lot more of coming out of there. Mammoth, Kraken, Canadians at forward, and we'll see where we go.
I guess with Montreal, when they got into the playoffs, the first round against Washington, maybe a little bit unexpected with how much production they got out of Dvorak and Anderson and Brendan Gallagher, which was great to kind of help balance out their lineup. But I suppose